Okay, so thank you for attending this talk. During this talk, I will present and demonstrate the basics of Sirius Web. As a marketing manager of Obeo, I'm not coding anymore, even if I'm a former developer, but that was too many years ago. So that's why I have proposed the challenge to build and to present this talk and to show how it's possible to create a modeler with Sirius Web without writing a single line of code. So I will not present in detail what Sirius Web is, but just remind the mottos that are driving us with this recent project. So first, we want to make it easy to graphically represent and edit data. And I insist on easy because that's what has been at the origin of Sirius since the beginning. And it's still one of our major priorities. The second one is to provide a modern stack and to avoid the need for installation on the user's desktop. That's why we are rewriting Sirius from scratch on technologies such as React, Spring, Postgre, etc. So, like Sirius Desktop, Sirius Web shares a low-code approach. It means that it provides a way to define modeling tools with as little code as possible. Concretely, a domain-specific modeling workbench is composed of both a domain and a view. The domain definition specifies the structure of your data that you will manage with your projects. And on top of this domain definition, there is a view definition, which specifies the structure of your visual editors. The visual editors will allow you to edit and visualize the data of your projects. And in addition to these no-code features, we provide a framework which allows you to extend your specific workbench with custom code. It may be to specify features that are not yet supported in no-code approach. It could be to add specific features or to integrate your modeling workbench with other tools. This topic will be addressed by Stéphane Bégodeau just after my talk. So for this talk, I will use a simple case study. I want to graphically edit and represent companies. In my example, companies are composed of sites and teams. Teams are composed of employees. Employees have a manager, and employees are located on the sites of the company. So here are some examples of the diagrams I want to be able to create for any company. So let's take a fictionary company named Pet Store. So Pet Store is composed of 3 teams: operations, marketing, sales. These teams are composed of employees: Alice, Leah, Hugo, Thomas, and so on. And the company has 3 sites: New York, Paris, Berlin. And I want to represent graphically this company. So on the left, you can see a first kind of diagram where employees are visually contained inside the teams with links between the employees and their manager and links between the sites where the team has employees. And on the right, you can see exactly the same data, but graphically represented differently. Here we have the sites, and the employees are represented inside each site with a color code to represent their team. In blue, the marketing, in green, the sales, and in red, the operations. And also we maintain the links between the employee and their manager. So these two diagrams are just two alternatives of the same data, and it allows to understand the organization of the employee, the company, according to different viewpoints. So with Sirius Web, I can implement these two diagrams, these editors for these two diagrams, with a project named Company DSL. I just have to define a domain definition, which defines the concepts of company, of team, employee, site. Once I have defined my DSL, I can create a project and start by instantiating my data. So I can create a pet store, company, marketing, sales, operations, etc. team, Daniel, Emma, Leah for employees, and Paris, Berlin, and New York site. So I can instantiate the concepts that are defined in my domain definition. And on top of this domain definition, I will create two definitions of diagrams. Teams diagram, which represents the employees inside their team, and site diagram, which represents the employees inside their site. And once the view definition has been defined on top of this domain definition, I will be able to instantiate these diagrams with my data and create the two former diagrams that I've shown just previously. And I can do this with any other company as I need. So now let's see how it works with a demo. So upload the demo. Okay. So this demo has been created from Obeo Cloud Platform. Obeo Cloud Platform is a cloud environment which is managed by Obeo and on which we have installed Sirius Web, plus other components, for example, to manage the users, the visibility of diagrams, and this kind of features. So I start on an empty project of empty environment. I can create my first project, Company DSL. In this project, I create a domain model. I name it company. It will identify my DSL. I can also rename my model company domain. And in this model, I start by creating a diagram, a domain diagram. On this diagram, I will be able to, I can define the entities of my domain model. So I define the concept of company, the concept of team. I can also define employee. And now I can link these entities between them. So a company contains teams, and a team contains employees. And I can specify the name of the relation and say that team has members. I can also create a reflective relation between employees. It is my manager relation. So an employee has 0 or 1 manager. And finally, I create my latest entity, which is site, also contained by the company. And I create the relation between an employee and his site. Now I will create the attributes. So as site, company, and team have a name, I create an abstract entity nameable, from which team, company, and site inherit, and on which I will define the name attribute. So graphically, I can create the attribute directly on this entity. And on employee, I don't have a name attribute, but a first name and a last name. So now my DSL, my domain model is defined. I can go back and create a new project, a pet store project, which will contain the data compliant with this domain model. So I create an empty model. It will be my pet store model. And in this model, I will create a resource. It's a company. And here I can find my domain model, which has just been defined before. And I highlight the structure here for a reminder. So in this resource, I can create I have created a company, pet store, and I can create the teams, the marketing team, the sales team. I can also create sites as defined in my domain model. And also I can create a second site, which is Berlin. And inside each team, I can create employees. So we create some employees to verify that my domain model works. So Thomas Martin, I can find here the attributes and the relations defined in my domain model. And I can set depending on what is already defined in my model. So Daniel Weber, I can define a manager and a site. And I will create a third employee in the second team. Emma Simon, which depends on Thomas and is based in Berlin. Okay, so now I have created my data. Just go back a little. And now I want to start visualize this data. So continue. I go back to my DSL definition, company DSL. And now I will create a view. The view defines how to edit graphically the domain model instances. So I create a company view. This kind of model is pre-initialized with a view and a new diagram description. And I create my first diagram, Teams diagram. This diagram will be created from company instances. So here I reference the company object from my domain model. And on this diagram, I want to be able to visualize the teams. So I create a team node, which will show instances of team, which instances the teams of my company. It's this link in my domain model. And I start by a configuration in list mode to see the subnodes as a list. So as subnode, I will create a subnode for to see the employees, the members of the team. So I will see company instance of company employees, and it will be the members of the team. And these members will be displayed with a specific expression. I want to see the first name and the last name with a space between the two strings. Here I'm written an AQL expression to compute some values. So we go back to my pet store model. And now if I go to my company instance, I can create this new diagram, Teams diagram. And you can see that it is automatically computed with the two teams, with the members of each team inside each team. Let's continue this view. And now I would like to see the sites. So I create a new node description at the root of my diagram. It will be a site node of type company site, this type, and it will be the sites of the company. And I don't want to show the sites with a box. I want to show them with a shape. I will select the location shape. Sirius Web provides a set of shapes by default. And I want also a link between the boxes which represent the teams and the shapes which represent the site. So I create an edge, the site edge. It will start from the team instances. It will be computed from team instances. I don't want any label on this edge. And here I specify from which node in my diagram the link will start and on which node it will end. And finally, I define an expression to compute the link. So I will take all the sites of all the members and I will remove the duplicates by converting the result into a set. So let's see what is the result. If I reopen my diagram, you can see the two sites and the locations to the sites where teams are members are located. Now, I would like to view the manager of each employee. So I represent now each employee as with a shape actor, and I deactivate the list mode in order to have a free-form view where the employees are represented as icons inside the box which represents the team. And I create a new edge description to show the link between an employee and his manager. So I define a manager edge. The manager edge will be computed from an employee. Again, I don't want any label expression. So I remove this expression. Both the source and target nodes will be the same, will be the member subnode. And the expression to compute the destination is very easy. It's self-manager. So let's see the result. Now you can see shape for each employee and links between the employees and their manager. Okay, so in this first part, I was focused on putting the right objects on the diagrams, the right links, Now I will improve my diagram I will improve graphically my diagram with colors and specific styles for the shapes and the edges. So let's continue the demo. I will go back to my DSL. And now I will edit the styles of each node. So under each node, you can see these objects, which represents the way it is graphically represented. So if we start by the team node, I will change its color, the background color, the border color. I set specific colors. I can augment the border radius to have more rounded shapes, boxes. I augment the border size, the font size, and the title, the label in bold. I can do the same on the site shape, but as it is only an icon, I don't have so much things to change, just the font size and the style to bold. On the site edge, the edge between the teams and the site, I remove the arrow. I augment the width of the edge, and I put the style, the line style, to dash. Okay, so let's see how my diagrams looks like now. And you can see the new color, the new style, etc. You can also add graphical styles which depend on the properties of the semantic objects. For example, here, I want to change the style of team depending on if there are employees or not in this team. So I create on my diagram, on the team node, I will add a conditional style. This conditional style is governed by a condition, and the condition is quite simple. I just have to test if there are members in the team. So safe members size equals 0. And if this condition is satisfied, the new style will be applied. So here I will change the color to gray, light gray, etc. And I will add an italic style. I apply the same size as the default size, so font size 20, border radius 10, and bold. And if we see the result, here we don't see the changes, but if I create a new team, by default the team is empty, so the conditional style is applied. And if I create a new employee in this team, you can see that automatically I get the default style. And as soon as I remove this employee, the specific style is applied. So now I would like to create tools to be able to interact with my diagram. As you can see, there are already some tools that are available. I can create some objects directly from the diagram, but I can also override some existing tools to specify specific behaviors. Here, for example, I would like to be able to edit my the name of an employee, the label of an employee, and automatically set the first name and the last name. By default, actually, if I create a new object, the value first name is set with new employee. So I create an edit label tool, which will be executed each time the user changes the label. And what I want to do is set differently the first name. So I will use a basic algorithm. I will take the first part of the label. We separate the label. I will split the label with spaces, and I will take the first element. I can do the same with the last name, and now I take the last part of the string. It could be improved with better strategies, of course. So now, if I edit the label of an employee, by default, it is initialized with new employee. But if I edit a name which is composed of two parts, automatically the label edit tool is interpreted, and you can see that the first name is set with the right value and the last name with the other part of the label. And I can create a second employee. And it will be the same. Now I want to create a last tool to override the creation tool. So you have seen by default when I create a new employee, his name is set with new employee. I want to change this with a specific value for the first name and a specific value for the last name. So I go back to my member subnode, and I can create a node tool. It is a tool which is executed when we use the palette. So I create the create employee tool, and on this create employee, each time it will be executed, we will create an instance. And just as have to specify the type name, which will be instantiated. It will be an employee. How I can attach this new instance to the root model, which is the root object, which is the team through the members relation. I go to this new instance. So I go to new employee, and then I can set the first name and the last name. Like the edit label, I use the set value object to set the first name and the last name with specific values. So let's try this tool. So if I go on a team, I can find this new tool here, and by default, I have the right values here that I can change either in the property view or directly on the diagram. And here I have a diagram that I can use to change my define operation teams, create employees, create sites, set values to the different attributes of my objects. So now I will show another diagram that I have created. I won't create it directly from scratch, but I will show just the result. The second diagram that I presented previously. Okay. Okay. So now okay, so now with this new representation, you can create a site diagram, and automatically you can see the sites with the employees which are located, who are located in these sites, etc. And to finish, I will just show you, just to see the definition and to see the difference between the members and the opposite to get the sites, the employees on each site. So to finish, I create a table representation, which is provided by default. So I don't need any specification to be able to have this representation. So on this representation, you can see all the elements contained by the current object. So here I can see the employees, and you can see that it is editable, so you can change the values of the attributes directly from the table, and it is reflected on the object and on all the diagrams where the same object is visible. So the demo is finished. I go back to the presentation, the slide, the screen. Okay. So just to wrap up what I have demonstrated, I have implemented a graphical editor that allows me to create the different concepts of a company, and by writing any line of code. I have used the domain editor to define my domain model, where I have used the entity, relation, and attribute concepts. To define the view, I have created diagram description with node descriptions, style nodes, and conditional styles. I have also created two specific tools to override the existing one, which are provided by default, so the label edit and the node tool. And I have used SQL expressions to configure these objects. So to provide more advanced features to the end user, or to integrate the modeling tool with other tools, you need to write code, and this will be explained just after me in a few minutes by Stéphane Bégodeau. In conclusion, the two important messages are, first, that you can already create usable tools with the current version of these no-code features. They still cover simple cases, but these no-code features are being extended to support more cases in the next versions of Sirius Web. So stay tuned to learn about the coming versions. Thank you.
Hi, Melanie. So first question for both of you. Do you plan to support other representation kinds like table and trees?
So tables I have shown are supported. It will be extended in later versions, but there is still a first version of tables. And trees, I don't know.
I can maybe add some more details about that. So for tables, so you see that we already integrated tables, but right now it's not yet available on the web definition. So you can define in no-code tables. So this will become possible maybe at the beginning of next year. So yes, the idea is to be able to contribute tables thanks to the no-code capabilities. And we have also in mind to work on tables to help end users to create their own table. So not only from the Studio Maker side, but also from the application user. And for the trees, in fact, trees are already, it's also possible to create trees as you see the Explorer is a tree. It's a tree representation, but it's not yet well defined as an API. So we need to rework this to be sure to provide trees as API, and then in the no-code definition. But it's already possible to define trees. As you see, the Explorer is a tree, and we reuse this tree in another application we developed.
Does the framework offer extensibility of the UI using code?
Do you want to answer, Fred?
Yes, on this one, yes.
I will answer it. Okay, so right now you can't contribute code from the no-code part, but you can contribute code to create your own application from a developer point of view. So this will be demonstrated by Stefan just after this Q&A. You asked if you migrate desktop view with Java code, you have to migrate this code to JS. No, you'll be able to reuse the Java code you have if this Java code is not depending on the Eclipse platform. So if you already have Java services that are available in Sirius Desktop, you'll be able to reuse these Java services directly in Sirius Web if they are not depending on the specific Eclipse UI or things like that. But if it's pure Java, it would be possible to use them directly. And for the extensibilities, I let you see the Stefan talk, and we can rediscuss that during the Q&A of Stefan if you want.
Yes.
Thanks. Next question. Quite interesting in my own opinion. Are there features not included in the open source offering and only in the enterprise offering?
Yes, some features are provided in Obeo Cloud Platform. So, for example, the user's management, the possibility to define the visibility of a representation, public or private. The live collaboration also, to when you are several users working simultaneously on the same diagram, we add a feature in the Obeo Cloud Platform where to show who is working on the same diagram. So you can have indicators on the views to see like in Google Doc, when you can see someone who is editing the same views or the same diagram. Perhaps other features, Melanie, but I think the user management, visibility, and
these are the main ones, yes.
Yes, and if I remember right, we had the presentation of those features last year, so maybe we can send a recap on the last year video or link to that. Okay, next question, probably the last one. To what extent can the layout of diagrams be configured?
Okay, I think this one is for me.
yes.
So you can configure the automated layout because it's a ELK layout, so it's not possible from the no-code capability that Frédéric just showed you. But you have the API to configure the ELK layout. So mostly what you could configure with ELK, you can be done with Sirius Web. You just need to go through code for that.
The same capabilities than in Sirius Desktop, where Sirius Desktop you can already integrate ELK, so the same principle. So if it is, except that it is done by coding in the backend.